All right. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, Atlanta. Good morning, Southeast. Today is your plant-based day. Oh no, today's your nutrition day and vitality day. It's not your plant-based day, and I'm excited to start the day because I feel more and more plant-based kind of guy.
That was the joke, okay, guys?
No. It's a declaration. You see, sometimes when I declare things, the world just kind of begins to evolve that way. But what was it? I have something to ask Andrea. This is how it started, so I got to ask Andrea. Andrea, you know why? Do you know why when the orange was crossing the street, it never got all the way through?
The orange. So the orange was in the street and he was going to cross the street. He didn't make it to the other side.
Do you know why?
Why? No, why?
Because it ran out of juice.
Jesus Christ.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody. Good morning, Facebook. Good morning, Daily Huddle. I hope you did not run out of juice. Good morning to everybody that is with us this morning. It is a fantastic morning. My name is Vince Rountree. Myself and my co-host Rawlin Vanatta are here to bring you the health, wellness, and vitality show. And this morning we are going to share with you some information about type 2 diabetes and put together in a way that you may not have heard. We're going to talk about the scary and weird things about type 2 diabetes and water faucets that everyone needs to know. What a combination! Diabetes, water faucets. We're going to get to that in a minute, but before we do, got a couple of questions. First question goes to Stan the Man. How are you this morning, brother? How are you?
I am focused because I am what I say I am.
You focus. Focus. Everything happens with laser-like focus. And that's the way you say you are, and you are zeroing in. And I know your goals are about to get met and exceeded because you are focused. That's what I'm talking about.
Thank you.
Good morning, Stan. Thank you for that. My next question goes to Mr. Chase. What time is it, my brother? What time is it?
The time is now, unmistakably, right now.
That's what I'm talking about. It is now. It is the only time that you can impact. You worry about the past. You can't change it. You're worried about the future. It ain't here yet. But the now is what you have impact on. Last and final question goes to Andrea Villa. Buenos dias, Andrea. Please, Andrea, tell me, where are you?
I am right where I need to be, which is right here.
Right here, right now. We are on it. Thank you so much, Andrea. Thank you, Chase. Thank you, Stan. Well, today, we're going to talk a little bit about this thing called diabetes. And the thing that is weird about type 2 diabetes and its relationship to that faucet thing. And we're going to get to the faucet little piece in a minute. Before we do, I want to share with you numbers that go against what we have been told. What is type 2 diabetes? Type 2 diabetes is elevated glucose levels in the blood. Type 2 diabetes is the number one cause of kidney failure and kidney disease. Diabetes is the number one cause of limb amputation. It's the number one cause of blindness. And if you have diabetes, you are at a 23-fold risk higher of having a heart attack or a stroke. So type 2 diabetes is deadly, it's devastating, and you don't want it. We always need to be clear on the difference between type 1 and type 2. About 5% of the public has type 1. That's when the pancreas just does not make any insulin. You will need to inject yourself with insulin if you have type 1. Type 2, the pancreas is working. Usually it's working in excess, but for some reason, the glucose levels are still high. Well, although type 1 is very different because the pancreas just doesn't work. Type 1 diabetes, patients that have type 1 diabetes are good for us to study because they must inject themselves with insulin. And so you can measure how much insulin they must inject themselves with to control their glucose level and see if they eat different diets, how much insulin will they have to inject themselves. Now, everybody that has type 2 diabetes has been told by their doctor that they need to watch their carbohydrates. And that's a logical, very logical thing to be told. Why is that? Because carbohydrates convert to glucose. Glucose gets in the bloodstream, and elevated glucose levels in the bloodstream, by definition, that's what type 2 diabetes is. The definition of type 2 diabetes is elevated glucose levels in the blood. Where does the glucose come from? Carbohydrates. Okay, makes sense. Cut back on your carbohydrates, and then you can control the glucose. That's just logical. And that's what people are told all day long. You want to eat a low glycemic index diet, low glycemic loads, because the glycemic load relates directly to how much glucose is getting into your bloodstream. All of that is true, but it's missing one important element. That one important element is, why is it the person with type 2 diabetes can eat that potato and their glucose jumps up, but somebody else does not? If it's just a matter of carbohydrates, then why is it that one person can eat it and they get elevated glucose, and the other person can eat it and it doesn't? Well, that's going to cause us to look a little bit deeper. And before I go into that, I'm going to show you an example of a type 1 diabetic who ate low carb and what happened. And then that same type 1 diabetic that ate plant-based, which is high carb, and what happened. So I'm going to share my screen, and I want you to look at these numbers. Now, these numbers that I'm about to show you will reveal something that you may not have seen before. If you have type 2 diabetes, you certainly have been told to reduce your carbs. Well, this is a type 1 diabetic that ate low carb and then switched to a low-fat, plant-based diet. And when he was eating low carb, he ate 125 grams of carbs a day. Then he increased his carb intake by 5-fold, went from 125 up to 650 grams of carbs a day. Whoa! Well, you know his diabetes must have gotten much, much worse with all those extra carbs. Okay, we're going to get to that. When he went plant-based, not only did his carbs go up, but the fat went down dramatically. Now, since a type 1 diabetic has to inject themselves with insulin to get their glucose level to go down, we can measure how much insulin did he have to give himself in order to control his carbs. Well, it was 42 units of insulin when he consumed 125. Well, when he went up to 650, clearly he needed more insulin, right? More carbs, more insulin. Well, let's see how much insulin he needed when he consumed 650 grams of carbs. Oh. Your mind should be blown right now. This goes against everything you have been told. You have been told that when you eat more carbs, that will make your diabetes worse. But he ate 5 times more carbs and needed almost half the amount of insulin. His insulin sensitivity went from 3 grams of carbs for every 1 unit of insulin up to 27 grams of carbs for every 1. He is much more insulin sensitive, actually 800% times more insulin sensitive. This goes against everything that you have been told about type 2 diabetes. And the way you have to understand why that is, that happens because you need to understand that when glucose goes up in the bloodstream, when it goes down, where does it go? Where does that glucose go? Into the muscle cell. But if you've got saturated fat in your muscle cell, glucose cannot get in. And so it just keeps building up in the bloodstream. That's the cause. That's the cause. And if you focus primarily on low glycemic index foods and you eat more meat, you eat more cheese, you eat more dairy, you eat more turkey, you eat more fish, what are you also eating? More saturated fat, saturated fat, saturated fat, saturated fat. That saturated fat gets in the bloodstream. That saturated fat goes from the bloodstream into your muscle cells. And when saturated fat is in the muscle cells, glucose has a hard time getting in. That's the reason why somebody that has diabetes, when they eat a potato, their glucose level shoots through the roof. And you blame the potato. I can't eat potatoes. Not if you are eating meat, cheese, fish, dairy, eggs. Because somebody else that eats a potato, if they don't have diabetes, or if they have diabetes and they have not eaten the meat, cheese, fish, dairy, eggs, and animal-based products, then you don't take in that saturated fat. Then you don't have that saturated fat in the muscle cell. And if you don't have saturated fat in the muscle cell, glucose can make it from the bloodstream into your muscle cell. and your glucose levels go down like they are supposed to. Now, what does that have to do with this water faucet thing? Here is the part about diabetes that people are not told that can literally save their life. It is this. I want you to think about glucose in the bloodstream, because elevated glucose in the bloodstream, that's what diabetes is. Think of the glucose in the bloodstream as though it is water in a sink. And if you've got water in a sink and the faucet's got the water coming in and the drain's got the water going out, and you can bring a lot of water in as long as the drain is bringing a lot of water out and the level is where you want it to be. The amount of water coming in, as long as the amount of water going out is the same, you are good. We need the water to come out. Same thing with glucose in your bloodstream. The glucose that comes in, if it comes in the form of unprocessed plant-based foods, now those carbs are in a format that do not have saturated fat, and they are not refined, so it doesn't get into the bloodstream nearly as quickly as, we're not talking about eating more Skittles, we're not talking about eating more cotton candy, we're not talking about eating more jelly beans, we're talking about eating beans, we're talking about eating rice, we're talking about eating potatoes, we're talking about eating bananas, fruits, vegetables, whole grains. Those foods, a lot of glucose will come in, but it cleans the drain and it can go out. That example I showed, they went from 125 grams of carbs to 650. More water came in, but guess what? It didn't clog the drain and the water was able to come out. When you eat animal-based foods and you have diabetes, every time you eat fish, you clog up the drain. You eat chicken, you clog the drain. I don't care if it's free-range chicken, you clog the drain. Organic grass-fed beef, you're clogging the drain. Then when you eat the potato, it goes up. Your glucose goes up. Why? You've clogged the drain. On this side, where you're eating whole food plant-based, you bring a lot more glucose in and it all goes out. For some reason, when the doctors tell you to just watch what's going in with no concept of how fast it's going out. When you eat, the blood glucose should go up and then go back down. The reason why it doesn't go back down in type 2 diabetic is because their drain is clogged. And if the drain is open, you can eat. We had a client. I got to tell you about this client. A woman who told me, Vince, my goal, I got type 2 diabetes, and I was determined to make you a liar. I was determined to make you a liar. So for dinner, I had as much watermelon as I could possibly eat. I did what you said. I stopped eating the meat, the cheese, the fish, the dairy, the eggs. I stopped eating that. And then I wanted to eat so much dinner. For dinner, that's all I had, was as much watermelon as I could take. My glucose level didn't go up. I couldn't believe it. So the next morning for breakfast, I had more watermelon. My glucose level didn't go up. All right, so now for lunch, I'm gonna have potatoes and rice and beans, just more carbs, more carbs. I'm gonna prove to you, Vince, that this doesn't work. By the end of her testimony, she was in tears. She said, I've been a type 2 diabetic for years. I've been avoiding potatoes for years. Today, I'm not taking any medication, and my glucose level is under control. Fasting glucose, less than 100. And I eat more potatoes. I eat more watermelon. I eat more beans. I eat more carbs. But they are unprocessed carbs. They're not getting the carbs from sodas and cotton candy. You're getting the carbs from plant-based foods.
Did you guys?
I'm going to jump in. It looks like that Mr. Vince Rountree has left the building. No, not really. It looks like his camera and internet connection dropped. So I have to say, and sorry, I'm a little late, guys. My camera would not cut on, and Giovanni, co-creator of the Daily Huddle, gave me some amazing technical advice. Do you know what that advice was? Restart your computer. It took 2 restarts, but it came back. And so I'm here to share with you, I had created the title for this as, what in the world does type 2 diabetes have to do with your kitchen faucet, to your bathroom faucet? And Vince was just describing how that your sink, your entire bowl, and your faucet is like the glucose. The water is like the glucose coming in. And most people focus on the carbs. Think about the carbs coming in when you have type 2 diabetes. And this is what they've been told. And Vince has come back on here. But the problem with that is it's the first indicator that there's a problem. But it's not, it's a symptom of the problem. And the problem is a clogged drain. And what clogs the drain is saturated fat. And we saw that most specifically in that type 1 diabetic, because I don't know if he described this to you really well, but type 1 diabetics don't make any insulin whatsoever. They don't make any. And yet they required less. They have to pump it in, but they required less, even with more carbs, which doesn't make sense unless you understand the sink example that Vince just shared. So I would like to open it up for questions right now. I just wanted to tie that up. Let's open it up for questions. If anybody has any specific questions, like, wait a minute, I don't understand, or this doesn't make sense, or anything that's related to type 2 diabetes. And Vince is just coming back on, and I think he's right there. Wave at me, Vince, if you can hear me. And all right, Vince is back in the game. You can finish your thought, Vince, and then we can go directly to Q&A. So go ahead, Vince.
Let's go on to Q&A. I know that you summed it up perfectly. So I'm glad that you were on as my Wi-Fi is going out, and now I'm on my phone. So let's go to questions.
All right. Any questions, comments, concerns? All right. Well, I do want to say, yes, sir.
A lot of us who've been here with you and Vince on a regular basis know exactly what you're talking about when you say a quality drain. Now, I get the analogy. It's phenomenal. Glucose is coming in. If it's going out fast enough, you'll be just fine. So help people understand what you mean by a quality drain. That is a powerful idea.
Go ahead, Vince. I'll let you go with that.
So what we mean by that is the fact that the glucose that gets in the bloodstream, that it can get out of the bloodstream and make it into the muscle cell. See, when the movement of glucose and carbohydrates, when you eat unprocessed plant-based foods, the carbohydrates convert to glucose. Glucose builds up in the bloodstream, and think of the glucose building up in the bloodstream like gasoline in the gas tank. In order for the car to go, the gas has to get from the gas tank into the engine. Well, imagine your engine being the mitochondria of your muscle cell. And as long as the gas can move from the gas tank into the engine, or in our case, from the bloodstream into the mitochondria of the muscle cell, then your blood glucose level doesn't build, it goes up and then it comes right back down. Because glucose goes into the bloodstream and then it comes out. Just like water in the sink, water can come in. As long as that water can come out, then you don't have a sink that's overflowing with glucose.
You know, and one thing I'd like to pop in and say, would everybody wiggle their hands and raise their arms? Wiggle your hands and wave your arms. Okay. So in this moment, what you're doing is you're driving your vehicle. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, he just described, right? Well, let's just keep waving. Let's just keep waving. Come on, let's just do it. We're burning fuel. What are we burning? We're burning glycogen. Okay. So instead of burning gasoline, like your car engine, we are burning glycogen. Well, where does glycogen come from? It comes from glucose. So we keep talking about glucose. Okay, so before the glycogen was glycogen, before it was what you could burn, it was glucose. And before it was glucose, guess what it was? Carbs. So when you eat a carb in the bloodstream, we call it glucose. So you could say sugar in the blood. That's the reason why a lot of older folks call it sugar diabetes. Okay. You know, Vince is too smart for me. So I'll say sugar in the blood, right? Or I'll say, and that's not technically accurate, right? But it's people's worried about sugar. Why are they worried about sugar? Because of their glucose levels. Well, why is glucose related to sugar? Because it's what is derived from the sugar. When you eat sugar, it becomes glucose in the bloodstream. But your body can't use it as glucose. It has to use it as glycogen. So it has to get from the gas pump into the car. And then from the car's fuel tank into the car's engine. And if the fuel line is clogged, so Sorrel, you asked the question, what's a quality drain? A quality drain is a unclogged drain. What we want to do is has anybody ever had a drain that gets clogged and it starts backing up and it's slower? The water goes up slower and slower. And you look down in there and you get one of those apparatuses and you pull out and it's got hair and gunk and all this stuff in there, right? And once you pull all that junk out, water just goes, water just goes right through, just like that. Drains very quickly. And so no matter how many carbs you eat fast enough, the glucose that's entering your bloodstream is going so fast back into the engine, your muscles, that it never causes a buildup. And if it never causes a buildup, then you have no trouble. There's no type 2 diabetes. The type 2 diabetes is the buildup of gunk in your fuel tank, which is your muscles. So if you're having issues with type 2 diabetes, adult onset, you're still producing insulin. Your pancreas produces the insulin. That's what helps that glucose get into the muscle cell. That's right. But if your drain is clogged, it can't get in. It can't get out of the bloodstream into muscle cell where it needs to go, into the fuel line. So I hope that's much more clear. And so here's the deal. If you're measuring glucose in the blood and you don't eat any glucose, you don't eat any carbs, guess what? You don't get any because you're not eating any. But your muscle is also not getting the fuel that it prefers. That's the reason why you always are craving the carbs. And you think it's a matter of your willpower and something wrong with you. But in fact, your body is designed, your brain is designed to function and run on its primary fuel source, which is carbohydrates. So Vince, close us out. How was that, by the way, Vince? Was that okay?
Yeah, you know what? You've been listening. Just like listening to me talk about food. Every now and then I get it right. All right, folks. Well, I would love to sit here. Go ahead, Chase. You got a question? No? Okay. All right. All right. I just wanted to, because I just can literally, I love making sure that people's questions are answered, because it's such a topic that's confusing. You know, it's confusing. And for some strange reasons, well, I know what the reason is. It's money. But unfortunately, doctors do not get that in their training. What I explained to you today, you can ask any doctor. Hey, ask any doctor you want. Did you learn in medical school? Now look what doctors got to do. 4 years of medical school, 3 to 4 years of residency, 3, 4, 5 years of fellowship. It's hard. I mean, they got to be ridiculously smart people. Ask them, in all of that training they go through, how much training did they get on how to use nutrition to reverse type 2 diabetes? Ask them, from all of the training they got, how much training did they get in learning how to use nutrition to reverse heart disease? It's not their fault. They don't know this for the most part. If they know it, they found out the same way that I did, on their own. They were motivated on their own to go find it. But it was not in their education. It's not taught. It's not taught. For the most part, there are a few. We're starting to make some grounds. Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine is making some inroads. The American College of Lifestyle Medicine is starting to make some inroads, but there's approximately 750,000 doctors, and maybe a few thousand of them are practicing lifestyle medicine. So a few thousand compared to 750,000, the numbers do not look good. But now you've got the beginning.
You know, and I want to define lifestyle medicine. What is lifestyle medicine? And we're not practitioners. Lifestyle medication. I mean, lifestyle. Go ahead.
So think about the difference between a chronic disease and an acute injury. If you get in a car crash, that's an acute injury. If you fall down and you're playing tennis like Gio and I do, and we turn an ankle, I hope to God that doesn't happen. You turn an ankle, that's an acute injury. So that is one type of treatment. A chronic disease or a chronic injury has taken a lifetime it's taken years to get there. And there's usually something you were doing in your lifestyle that caused it.
It's like 1,000 paper cuts in the same place over and over and over again for 30 years. How deep is the wound?
1,000 paper cuts. That's exactly right. High blood pressure, heart disease, stroke, type 2 diabetes. These are chronic diseases that there has been something that you've done in your lifestyle to cause it. And the pillars of lifestyle medicine are nutrition, sleep, exercise, managing stress, not abusing substances like drugs and alcohol and cigarettes, right? Those are the pillars. If you can get those things right, 80% of our healthcare spend will go away. So when I say lifestyle medicine, I mean, when you go to a doctor and they ask, what have you been eating? How much sleep have you been getting? What type of exercise are you doing? As opposed to just take this pill. Because taking the pill for a problem that's caused by what you eat never solves the problem. So that's what I mean by lifestyle medicine. Okay, I'm going to wrap up. We've gone way over time here. And so I just want to thank you guys for tuning in and listening. I hope that this has been a helpful session to you. I want you to look at your body and treat your body like the temple that it is. You only have one body in this lifetime. You've only got one. If you don't take care of it, where are you going to live? You only have one body in this lifetime, so eat as though your life depends on it. Just get more fruits and vegetables into your diet every day. Go out and buy some peaches. Go out and buy some apples. Go out and buy some nectarines. Eat more fruits and vegetables. And that is eating as though your life depends on it, because it really does. My name is Vince Rountree. My co-host is Rawlin Vanatta. And we thank you for tuning in to the Daily Huddle on Tuesday morning, and tune in to the Daily Huddle each and every weekday morning at 9 o'clock Eastern. Guaranteed you will learn something that will help you to improve the level of your life. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a fantastic day.
Peace and blessing, guys.
Thank you, Stan.
Thank you, everyone. Bye now.
Thank you,
Bye-bye,
Cece.
CC.